What happens when the very planet that gives us life turns against us with unparalleled force? Natural disasters are more than just catastrophic events. They are transformative moments that rewrite landscapes, topple civilizations, and sear themselves into the collective memory of humanity. These violent convulsions of nature, from the depths of the oceans to the heights of the atmosphere, operate on timescales that dwarf human existence. They are stark reminders of our fragile existence on a dynamic and often volatile world. Our journey through unforgettable natural disasters begins in the ancient world, where a single event may have spawned a legend. In the Aegean Sea, around the year 1600 BCE, the Minoan civilization was at its zenith, a sophisticated maritime power centered on the island of Crete. Not far away, the island of Thera, known today as Santorini, was home to a thriving settlement called Akrotiri, with its multi-story buildings, advanced plumbing, and vibrant frescoes. But deep beneath the earth, a massive magma chamber was building pressure, threatening one of the most violent eruptions in human history. When Thera exploded, it did so with a force estimated to be 4 to 5 times greater than the cataclysmic Krakatoa eruption in 1883. The island's center collapsed, forming the giant caldera we see today, and triggering a mega-tsunami that inundated the entire Mediterranean basin. Modern geological surveys, using deep-sea sonar and sediment core analysis, reveal a tsunami wave that may have reached heights of 100 meters, striking the northern coast of Crete with devastating force. This single blow may have crippled the Minoan fleet, shattered their coastal economy, and rendered them vulnerable to the rising Mycenaean Greeks from the mainland, contributing to their eventual decline. Herein lies one of history's greatest debates. Could the memory of this advanced island-based culture, suddenly lost to the sea, be the historical kernel for Plato's story of Atlantis, a tale of a powerful island civilization swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune? While definitive proof remains elusive, the theory powerfully illustrates how a real natural disaster can morph into a timeless myth. From the Bronze Age, we leap forward to the Age of Enlightenment, to the pious and wealthy capital of a global empire, Lisbon, Portugal, on the morning of November 1st, 1755. It was All Saints' Day, and most of the city's 250,000 residents were in church, unaware that the tectonic plates beneath them were about to unleash their fury. At around 9:40 in the morning, the city was struck by an earthquake, now estimated to have been a magnitude 8.5 to 9 on the Richter scale. The shaking lasted for an estimated 3 to 6 minutes, but in that short period, nearly every significant building in Lisbon collapsed, burying thousands in the rubble of churches, convents, and grand palaces. But the earth was not finished. Survivors who stumbled out of the ruins towards the city's spacious waterfront plaza, the Terreiro do Passo, looked on in horror as the sea retreated dramatically, exposing the shipwrecks and lost cargo on the seabed. Minutes later, a series of tsunami waves, some estimated to be as high as 20 meters, crashed into the city, sweeping thousands out to sea and smashing the ports. To compound the unimaginable horror, the fires sparked by toppled candles in churches and kitchens in homes raged for days, burning what little the earthquake and tsunami had left. The Lisbon disaster was not just a physical catastrophe, it was a philosophical earthquake that shook the foundations of Enlightenment thought. Thinkers like Voltaire used the event to question the optimistic notion that we live in the best of all possible worlds, famously satirizing the philosophy in his novel Candide. The sheer scale of the destruction, which seemed to punish the pious and the sinful alike, fueled intense theological and scientific debates about the nature of God, evil, and the universe. In the aftermath, the Marquis of Pombal, the king's chief minister, implemented a radical and pragmatic rebuilding plan, designing one of the first cities to be built with earthquake-resistant architecture. He famously surveyed the damage and asked, quote, "2. His inquiries to parish priests about the effects of the disaster in their districts are considered one of the first examples of a modern sociological survey. The Lisbon earthquake thus became a pivotal moment, forcing a shift in thinking from divine retribution to a more scientific understanding of natural phenomena and spurring the birth of modern seismology as a field of study. Our next destination is the Caribbean, to the lush island of Martinique, and the year 1902. The city of Saint Pierre was known as the bustling, elegant capital, with a population of around 30,000 people. Overlooking the city was the beautiful cone-shaped Mount Pelée, a volcano that had been dormant for so long that it was considered a harmless part of the landscape. However, by the spring of 1902, Mount Pelée was beginning to awaken. Fumaroles emitted sulfurous smoke, tremors shook the ground, and ash falls began to coat the city, while a boiling lake formed at the summit. Despite these ominous signs, local authorities, fearful of disrupting the upcoming elections and the island's economy, downplayed the threat and even discouraged evacuation. On the morning of May 8, 1902, Ascension Day, the volcano finally unleashed its full, terrifying power. The eruption was not a typical lava flow, but a far deadlier phenomenon. A nuée ardente, or glowing cloud, a pyroclastic flow of superheated gas, ash, and rock fragments moving at hurricane speeds of over 160 kilometers per hour. This incandescent avalanche, with temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, descended on Saint Pierre and obliterated it almost instantaneously. Its force so great, it capsized ships in the harbor and melted glass bottles. Of the entire city's population, there were officially only 2 survivors: a shoemaker who was in a poorly ventilated, windowless basement, and a prisoner named Louis-Auguste Siparis, who was saved by the thick walls of his solitary confinement cell. The total annihilation of Saint Pierre became a textbook case in volcanology, forever changing how scientists viewed volcanic threats and introducing the world to the destructive power of pyroclastic flows. Thousands of kilometers away, in the Sunda Strait between the islands of Java and Sumatra in Indonesia, a far louder, more globally impactful event was waiting to unfold. In August of 1883, the volcanic island of Krakatoa, which had been quiet for 2 centuries, became a spectacle of nature's raw power. For months, it had been venting steam, generating tremendous explosions that could be heard hundreds of kilometers away. People in coastal towns would gather to watch the nightly fireworks display, a terrifyingly beautiful prelude to apocalypse. Then, on the morning of August 27th, the mountain exploded in a series of 4 colossal eruptions, the final one being the loudest. The sound produced by this final blast was so immense that it is widely considered the loudest noise ever audibly reported in human history, heard over 4,800 kilometers away on the island of Rodrigues near Africa, and over 3,200 kilometers away in Perth, Australia. The pressure wave from the explosion created a barograph signature that circled the globe multiple times, recorded by instruments everywhere. The eruption itself triggered a series of devastating tsunamis, with waves reaching heights of up to 40 meters that obliterated hundreds of coastal villages, killing more than 36,000 people. Krakatoa's impact was truly global. The massive amount of sulfur dioxide and ash injected into the stratosphere acted as a solar filter, lowering global temperatures and creating spectacular blood-red sunsets around the world for years, an effect famously captured in the atmospheric background of Edvard Munch's painting, The Scream. We now fast forward to the continental United States, to the Pacific Northwest, and the morning of May 18, 1980. Mount St. Helens in Washington state was a picture of volcanic perfection, a symmetrical, snow-capped stratovolcano that had been dormant for over 120 years. For 2 months leading up to this day, scientists from the U.S. Geological Survey had been closely monitoring the mountain, which was showing clear signs of an impending eruption. A unique and ominous phenomenon was observed. The entire north flank of the volcano was bulging outward at a rate of 1 to 2 meters per day, pushed upwards by an intruding body of magma. This was the first time in history that such a dramatic deformation had been measured before a major eruption, providing an unprecedented opportunity for scientific study. At 8:32 in the morning, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake struck directly beneath the mountain. This jolt was the final trigger for the north flank, already weakened, to give way in the largest landslide in recorded history. This massive rock slide uncorked the pressurized system inside the volcano, and the magma, depressurized, exploded outwards not vertically, but horizontally. Mount St. Helens unleashed a rare and devastating lateral blast, a 300 degrees Celsius, stone-filled hurricane that flattened over 600 square kilometers of primeval forest in a matter of minutes. Trees were mowed down like blades of grass, and the eruption column of ash and gas rose 24 kilometers into the atmosphere, eventually circling the Earth. The event was a terrifying lesson for volcanologists, proving that volcanoes can explode sideways with unimaginable force. And the immense data collected from St. Helens has since been used to understand volcanic hazards and save lives around the world. Our final stop brings us to the 21st century and a disaster of unimaginable scale that unfolded across an entire ocean. On December 26, 2004, deep beneath the Indian Ocean, off the west coast of northern Sumatra, the Earth's crust ruptured. The India Plate was slowly and relentlessly subducting beneath the Burma Plate, and on that day, the stress that had been building for centuries was released in one colossal jerk. The resulting earthquake, known as the Sumatra-Andaman earthquake, was a magnitude 9.1 to 9.3, the third largest ever recorded on a seismograph. It lasted for an agonizing 8 to 10 minutes, with the entire planet vibrating as much as 1 centimeter. The energy released was equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima-type atomic bombs. This titanic shift of the seafloor, vertically displacing an estimated 30 cubic kilometers of water, generated a series of powerful tsunami waves. These waves radiated outwards across the Indian Ocean at speeds of up to 800 kilometers per hour, the speed of a jetliner, striking the coastlines of 14 countries with little or no warning. When the waves hit, they did so with catastrophic force, with some heights reaching 30 meters. Entire coastal communities in Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and even as far away as Somalia on the east coast of Africa were swept away or smashed to rubble. The human cost was staggering, with a final death toll estimated at over 230,000 people. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was a brutal, global-scale event that exposed the vulnerabilities of our modern world and, in its tragic wake, spurred an international effort to create a global tsunami early warning system. From the ash-buried city of Akrotiri to the tsunami-ravaged coasts of Sumatra, these moments of nature's fury share a common thread. They are humbling demonstrations of the immense power of the planetary forces that shaped our world. They show us that despite all our technological prowess and scientific understanding, we are still tenants on a dynamic and often violent planet. Yet, in studying these cataclysms, we do more than just recount tales of destruction. We learn, we adapt, we build better, and we deepen our profound connection to the Earth. These unforgettable disasters are not just endpoints for civilizations, they are also turning points in the epic, ongoing story of human resilience and ingenuity. In the shadow of these cataclysmic events, where nature asserts its absolute dominance, another narrative often emerges, one that speaks not of destruction, but of the unbreakable human spirit. These are stories that defy logic, where the thin line between life and death is traversed by sheer force of will, ingenuity, and sometimes what can only be described as a miracle. Science seeks to understand the physiological and psychological limits of human endurance. Yet these tales push the boundaries of what was previously thought possible. They are testaments to the fact that the will to live can be as powerful as any force of nature. This is the chronicle of those who stood against all odds and refused to be defeated. Our journey into the impossible begins high in the remote Andes Mountains, on a glacier at an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters. On October 13, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, a Fairchild FH-227D carrying 45 passengers and crew, including a rugby team, crashed into this desolate landscape. The impact tore the fuselage apart, instantly killing numerous passengers and leaving the survivors critically injured in a sub-zero wilderness with no hope of immediate rescue. They were hundreds of kilometers off course in a vast, unmapped area between Chile and Argentina. And as days turned into a week, their situation grew increasingly dire. The world briefly searched for them, but after 8 days, the search was officially called off, leaving the survivors to believe they were completely alone and forgotten. The immediate challenges were monumental: a lack of adequate clothing for the freezing temperatures, severe injuries with no medical supplies, and most critically, a near-total absence of food. The survivors huddled together in the wreckage of the fuselage, melting snow for water and sharing meager rations of chocolate, wine, and crackers that were quickly depleted. When they heard on a small transistor radio that the search had been abandoned, the devastating reality of their situation sank in, forcing them to confront a horrifying truth. To survive, they would have to do the unthinkable. After an agonizing period of moral and spiritual debate, the group made a collective and solemn pact to consume the flesh of their deceased comrades. A decision born not of desire, but of a desperate biological imperative to live. For 71 days, the survivors endured on the frozen mountain, battling avalanches that killed 8 more people and the constant gnawing hunger. Their hope was rekindled by the unshakable conviction of Nando Parado, who, after losing his mother and sister in the crash and avalanche, decided that waiting would mean certain death. Along with Roberto Canessa, he embarked on a heroic 10-day trek across the hostile Andean peaks, a journey that would have been impossible for even the most experienced mountaineer. They finally encountered a Chilean herder on the other side of a mountain, leading to the eventual rescue of the remaining 16 survivors on December 22nd and 23rd, 1972. According to leading physiologists who have studied the survivors, their physiological adaptation to starvation, entering a state of ketosis where the body burns its own fat for fuel, was crucial to their endurance. Psychologically, the strong group cohesion, a shared faith, and the unwavering goal of returning home proved to be as vital as the food they consume. From the frozen expanse of a mountain peak, we descend deep into the suffocating darkness of the Earth's crust for a modern-day miracle of survival. On August 5, 2010, a massive rock collapse caused the upper levels of the San Jose copper gold mine in Copiapó, Chile, to cave in, trapping 33 miners 700 meters below the surface. For the first 17 days, the world, and even the trapped men themselves, believed they were entombed forever, buried beneath 700,000 tons of rock. The rescue efforts above ground were frantic but initially hopeless, with multiple drill probes failing to find any sign of life in the vast labyrinth of tunnels below. Inside the mine, the men, led by their 54-year-old shift foreman, Luis Urzua, organized themselves into a disciplined community, rationing what little food they had: tiny portions of canned fish and peaches, a single teaspoon per person every 2 days. They established routines, mapped their underground world, and used the headlights of a vehicle to create a simulated "sick cycle," a strategy psychologists now credit as essential for maintaining their sanity in the oppressive darkness. The turning point came on August 22nd, when a drill bit broke through into a workshop area where the miners had gathered, and from below, a note was tied to the probe and sent back up to the surface. It read, in simple but powerful Spanish, "7. This message ignited a global wave of celebration and initiated a rescue operation of unprecedented scale and complexity, involving engineers and experts from around the world. Over the next 52 days, a daring and innovative plan was executed to drill a rescue shaft wide enough to pull the men to safety, one by one. The men, meanwhile, maintained their mental and physical health by sending videos to their families, receiving supplies and communication through small boreholes, and holding nightly meetings. On October 13, 2010, after 69 days trapped underground, the world watched as the first miner was brought to the surface in a sleek, bullet-like capsule dubbed "8, followed one by his 32 comrades. Their survival was a triumph of human resilience, but also a landmark achievement in engineering and international cooperation, showcasing how technology and collective effort can conquer even the most profound challenges of the natural world. From the collective triumph deep within the earth, we now turn to a story of solitary endurance, on the vast, unforgiving expanse of the open ocean. In November of 1942, during the height of World War II, a Chinese sailor named Poon Lim was serving as a second steward aboard the British merchant ship SS Benlamond. On November 23rd, the ship was torpedoed by a German U-boat 2 hours south of the Cape of Good Hope, off the coast of South Africa, and sank in just 2 minutes. Poon Lim was thrown into the Atlantic Ocean, but he managed to find a small wooden 8-foot square life raft that had broken loose from the sinking ship. He was alone, wearing only a pair of overalls, with no food, no water, and a seemingly infinite ocean stretching in every direction. For the next 133 days, Poon Lim would survive what is considered the longest-known solo ordeal on a life raft. His survival story is a masterclass in human ingenuity and mental fortitude. He immediately began to search the raft and salvaged a small tin of biscuits, a 40-liter jug of water, some flares, and a flashlight, which he used sparingly. When his water ran out, he fashioned a canvas cover to collect rainwater, and on one miraculous occasion found a fish that he could not only eat, but also extract liquid from its eyes for hydration. He used the wire from the flashlight handle to create a hook, which he baited with a piece of biscuit, and successfully caught fish, even managing once to land a small shark, which he fought off with his knife and then used its liver for both food and oil. Crucially, to combat the soul-crushing loneliness and prevent madness, Poon Lim imposed a strict routine upon himself, swimming a fixed distance every day to keep his muscles active and tracking the days by notching a piece of wood. He was spotted by several passing ships and even airplanes, but none saw him, forcing him to confront the despair of being so close to rescue, yet so impossibly far. Finally, on April 5, 1943, he was picked up by a Brazilian fishing family off the coast of Brazil, frail and emaciated, but alive. According to maritime survival experts, his meticulous self-discipline and resourcefulness were as critical to his survival as the basic supplies he initially found. Poon Lim's incredible journey remains a powerful and inspiring benchmark for the limits of human endurance against the elements. Our final unbelievable tale shifts from the external threats of mountains, mines, and oceans to a war fought against the very limits of human physiology, a battle against the cold itself. On May 20, 1999, a 29-year-old Swedish medical student named Anna Bogenholm was skiing with 2 friends in the Kjollen Mountains of northern Norway, near the border with Norway. While navigating a steep trail, she lost control and fell headfirst onto a patch of ice, which broke, plunging her into a glacial stream of meltwater. Her body became wedged between a rock and a sheet of thick ice, trapping her with only her skis and boots visible above the surface as her head was submerged in the freezing water. Her friends desperately tried to free her, but were unable to break the thick ice, and by the time a rescue team arrived 40 minutes later, she had been submerged for over an hour. When they finally extricated her from the water, she was clinically dead. She had no pulse, was not breathing, and her pupils were fixed and dilated. The rescue team began CPR, but as she was airlifted to the University Hospital of Tromsø, her chances of survival were considered to be virtually zero. She arrived at the hospital with a body temperature of 13.7 degrees Celsius, 56.7 degrees Fahrenheit, the lowest ever recorded in a surviving case of accidental hypothermia. The medical team, led by anesthesiologist Mads Gilbert, faced an extraordinary decision: continue resuscitation efforts on a patient who was, by all medical definitions, dead, or give up. They chose to fight, connecting her to a heart-lung machine that slowly warmed her blood, a process that took hours. The science behind her survival lies in a phenomenon known as protective hypothermia, where the extreme cold dramatically slowed down her body's metabolic processes, reducing her tissue's need for oxygen. The cold essentially put her body into a state of suspended animation, preventing the severe brain damage that would normally occur after being deprived of oxygen for so long. Her case, according to leading hypothermia specialists, completely rewrote medical textbooks and gave emergency responders a new, more aggressive protocol for treating victims of extreme cold, proving that one should not declare a person dead until they are warm and dead. After 9 hours of continuous medical work, a faint pulse returned, and Anna Bogenholm's heart began to beat on its own. The road to recovery was long and arduous. She awoke from a coma paralyzed from the neck down, but through intensive physical therapy, she slowly regained her mobility. Remarkably, she suffered only minor long-term neurological damage and was able to return to her work as a radiologist, ironically specializing in the very imaging scans that had helped save her. Her survival is not just a personal miracle, but a landmark event in medical history, providing invaluable data on the limits of human physiology. From the Andes to the Chilean desert, from the Atlantic to a frozen Norwegian stream, these stories share a profound commonality. They demonstrate that survival is often not a matter of physical strength alone, but a complex interplay of hope, ingenuity, psychological resilience, and an unyielding refusal to surrender. These are the moments that define the outer limits of human experience, reminding us that the will to live is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. While the will to live defines our limits, the will to innovate redefines them, propelling humanity forward in a series of breathtaking technological leaps that have reshaped our world. The very first of these leaps, so ancient it predates written history, was the mastery of fire. Archaeological evidence from sites like the Wonderwork Cave in South Africa suggests that hominins were controlling fire as far back as 1 million years ago. This was not merely a tool for warmth, it was a weapon of defense against predators, a source of light to push back the darkness, and a social focal point. Most importantly, the ability to cook food unlocked more nutrients and calories, a dietary revolution that many anthropologists believe fueled the development of the larger, more complex human brain. Fire was humanity's first great step away from the mercy of nature and toward the mastery of it. For millennia, this control of fire remained the pinnacle of technology. But the next great leap would not be about mastering an element, but about mastering life itself. Around 10,000 BCE, during the Neolithic Revolution, humans in the Fertile Crescent began the systematic cultivation of wild grasses like wheat and barley, and the domestication of animals like goats and sheep. This was a gradual, complex process that unfolded over centuries, not a single event, but its impact was more immediate and profound than anything that had come before. It represented a fundamental shift in human existence from a nomadic lifestyle of hunter-gatherers to settled communities of farmers. This shift to agriculture allowed for the production of food surpluses, which in turn supported larger, denser populations and freed a segment of the community from the task of food production. This newfound freedom gave rise to specialization, creating the first craftsmen, priests, soldiers, and administrators, and laying the foundation for organized society, trade, and ultimately, civilization. But what prompted this revolutionary change remains a subject of intense debate among archaeologists. Some theories suggest it was a response to climate change, while others point to population pressures. A more recent and tantalizing hypothesis, however, has been prompted by the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a massive ceremonial complex with intricately carved pillars built by hunter-gatherers around 11,600 years ago. The existence of such a sophisticated, large-scale construction project before the widespread adoption of agriculture has led some experts to propose a radical inversion of the old theory. Perhaps the need to feed the large, organized workforce required to build and maintain such sacred sites was a primary driver for the invention of farming, not the other way around. This discovery suggests that the very impulse to create monumental shared meaning may have been the catalyst that led humanity down the path to agriculture. For thousands of years after agriculture took root, the spread of knowledge remained a slow, painstaking process, limited by the sheer difficulty of copying texts by hand. A single book could take years to produce, and was worth a small fortune, meaning that knowledge was the exclusive domain of a tiny, powerful elite of clergy and scholars. This bottleneck on information stifled progress and preserved ancient doctrines, often without question. Then, in the 15th century, in the German city of Mainz, a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg combined existing technologies in a revolutionary new way. By adapting a wine press for mechanical force and developing a durable, oil-based ink, he created a system of individual metal letters, movable type, that could be arranged to print any page and then reused. Around 1445, Gutenberg printed his masterpiece, the Gutenberg Bible, and with it unleashed a flood of information that would wash away the old medieval order. The printing press did not make books cheaper in the modern sense, but it made them vastly more available and consistent, allowing ideas to spread across Europe with a speed that was previously unimaginable. Martin Luther's 95 Theses challenging the Catholic Church were printed and disseminated widely, fueling the Protestant Reformation. Scientific works from Copernicus and Galileo circulated, accelerating the scientific revolution and changing humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Literacy rates began to climb as books became more common, empowering the individual and paving the way for the Age of Enlightenment by democratizing knowledge. If the printing press freed information, the next great leap freed physical power from the constraints of muscle and wind. For most of human history, the primary sources of energy were human and animal labor, supplemented by wind and water, which were unreliable and geographically fixed. The development of the steam engine in the 18th century changed everything, offering a source of immense, controllable power that could be located anywhere. While early designs existed, it was the Scottish inventor James Watt who, in the 1770s, made the steam engine truly transformative. Watt's key innovation was the separate condenser, a device that dramatically improved the engine's efficiency by allowing the steam to condense in a separate chamber, preventing the cylinder from cooling and reheating with every cycle. This seemingly simple improvement made the steam engine powerful and economical enough to be used far beyond pumping water out of mines. Soon, steam engines were powering the factories of the Industrial Revolution, enabling mass production on an unprecedented scale and concentrating populations in new, sprawling urban centers. The technology was then miniaturized and placed on wheels, creating the steam locomotive, which shrank the world by making land transport fast and reliable. Steamships connected continents, globalizing trade and migration in ways that were previously impossible. The harnessing of steam was the violent, dirty, and world-altering birth of the modern industrial age, a leap that fundamentally restructured the global economy and society. In the 20th century, a quieter but arguably more profound technological leap occurred. One so small it is invisible to the naked eye, yet so powerful it underpins our entire modern world. This was the invention of the transistor in 1947 at Bell Labs in New Jersey by a team of physicists including John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley. The transistor is a semiconductor device that can act as both a switch and an amplifier for electronic signals, but it does so with no moving parts, incredible reliability, and minuscule power consumption. It was a revolutionary replacement for the bulky, fragile, and power-hungry vacuum tubes that powered the first generation of computers. The impact of this tiny invention cannot be overstated. It is the fundamental building block of every modern electronic device. The ability to mass-produce reliable transistors led to the development of the integrated circuit, or microchip, which packed thousands and then millions of transistors onto a single piece of silicon. This, in turn, led to the personal computer revolution, the mobile phone, the internet, satellite navigation, and virtually every piece of digital technology that defines contemporary life. The transistor did not just create new products, it created a new reality, a digital world where information could be created, processed, and transmitted globally in an instant. This leap from mechanical to electronic marked the true beginning of the information age. As the digital age blossomed, humanity was simultaneously unlocking an even more primordial and terrifying source of power, the one that holds the very atoms of matter together. The discovery of radioactivity in the late 19th century and Albert Einstein's formulation of E equals mc squared revealed that a tiny amount of mass could be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. This theoretical possibility became a terrifying reality on December 2, 1942, under the stands of a disused football stadium at the University of Chicago. There, a team led by the Italian physicist Enrico Fermi initiated the first controlled, self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction in a crude assembly of graphite and uranium known as Chicago Pile 1. This single, quiet event marked the moment humanity first successfully harnessed the power of the atom, a breakthrough that would immediately be weaponized by the Manhattan Project. The development of the atomic bomb, which culminated in the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, introduced a new and existential threat to human civilization. Simultaneously, the promise of using this energy for peaceful purposes, generating vast amounts of electricity with nuclear power plants, offered a seductive vision of a future of clean, limitless energy. This dual nature of nuclear technology, its capacity for both unparalleled creation and absolute destruction, remains one of the defining dilemmas of our time. A technological leap that forced humanity to confront its own capacity for self-annihilation. The final leap in this journey through transformative moments moves from the realm of physics and energy to the fundamental code of biology itself. For centuries, the mechanisms of heredity were a complete mystery, a black box of traits passed from parent to child without any known physical basis. That all changed in 1953 when two young scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick, at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, England, unveiled the structure of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. Building on the critical and at the time uncredited X-ray diffraction work of Rosalind Franklin, they deduced that DNA was a beautiful double helix, a twisted ladder whose rungs were made of pairs of chemical bases. This elegant structure was not just a shape, it was a mechanism, a chemical code that explained precisely how genetic information could be copied and passed down through generations. The discovery of the double helix was the key that unlocked the secret of life, providing a universal language for all living organisms, from bacteria to humans. The consequences of this single insight have been staggering, giving rise to the entire field of modern biotechnology. It led to the Human Genome Project, the mapping of our entire genetic blueprint, and now powers revolutionary technologies like CRISPR gene editing, which offers the potential to cure genetic diseases. From mastering fire to deciphering the code of life, these technological leaps represent humanity's relentless drive to understand, manipulate, and ultimately transcend the limitations of the natural world, each one opening a new chapter of possibility and responsibility. From the decipherable code of life to the indecipherable codes of the past, humanity's journey is punctuated not only by moments of brilliant understanding, but also by profound and baffling mystery. While the previous chapter celebrated the leaps that built our modern world, this chapter delves into the discoveries that refuse to fit neatly into our historical narrative. These are the anomalies, the impossible objects, and the enigmatic texts that surface from the soil of ancient civilizations, challenging our most fundamental assumptions about the past. They are archaeological and historical puzzles that suggest our ancestors may have possessed knowledge, technologies, or insights far beyond what we have traditionally credited them with. Each one is a stark reminder that history is not a closed book, but a vast and ongoing investigation filled with chapters yet to be understood. Our first journey takes us to the turquoise waters off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, where in 1900, a team of sponge divers stumbled upon a shipwreck from the 1st century BCE. Amidst a treasure trove of bronze and marble statues, glassware, and pottery, they retrieved a nondescript, corroded lump of bronze and wood, no larger than a shoebox. For decades, this unassuming artifact, which had split into several fragments, languished in a museum storeroom, overshadowed by more aesthetically pleasing finds. It was only when a researcher began to notice faint markings, like tiny gears, etched onto its surface that its true significance began to emerge. This was the moment the Antikythera mechanism, arguably the most baffling technological artifact ever discovered, started to reveal its impossible secret. Early attempts to study the mechanism were hampered by its extreme fragility, but the advent of modern technology has allowed us to peer inside without destroying it. High-resolution X-ray and computed tomography scans have revealed a stunningly complex system of over 30 bronze gears, differential gears, and inscriptions, all working together in an intricate celestial machine. Far from being a simple astrolabe, the device was a sophisticated mechanical computer, capable of predicting astronomical positions, eclipses, and the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games with astonishing accuracy. The level of miniaturization and mechanical complexity is comparable to that of a 19th-century Swiss clock, a technology that should not exist in the ancient Greek world. This single artifact rewrote the history of technology, proving that the ancient Greeks had a grasp of mechanics and engineering far beyond anything previously imagined. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism raises profound questions that continue to haunt archaeologists and historians. Who was the genius, or group of geniuses, who designed and built this incredible device? Why was this technology seemingly unique, with no other examples or written accounts of similar machines ever found? And why did this knowledge vanish for over 1,000 years? Theories abound, suggesting it was the work of the renowned astronomer Hipparchus, or even the legendary inventor Archimedes, but there is no definitive proof. The shipwreck itself may have been carrying a treasure of luxury goods and high-tech devices from Rhodes to Rome, a payload of knowledge for the Roman elite. The Antikythera mechanism remains a solitary, breathtaking whisper of a lost scientific tradition, an impossible object that suggests a different path for technology, one that was largely abandoned until the European Renaissance. If the Antikythera mechanism is a mystery of engineering, then the Voynich manuscript is a mystery of language and cognition, a puzzle that has defied the world's greatest minds for over a century. This mysterious book, acquired by an antiquarian named Wilfrid Voynich in 1912, is a small codex made of vellum pages filled with elegant, flowing script and bizarre, vibrant illustrations. The pages depict fantastical botanical plants that do not exist on Earth, intricate astronomical charts, and what appear to be elaborate plumbing systems connecting strange, cylindrical buildings. Human figures, mostly of naked women, are shown bathing in these interconnected tubs and green-tinted liquids, all while surrounded by the manuscript's unique, indecipherable text. Carbon dating of the vellum has placed its creation firmly in the early 15th century, sometime between 1400 and 420, but its author, origin, and purpose remain completely unknown. The script itself consists of 20 to 30 distinct characters, written from left to right, in a language that appears to follow the phonetic and syntactic rules of a natural tongue. It is not a simple substitution code, nor does it seem to be gibberish. The text exhibits linguistic patterns and structures that suggest it is a genuine, albeit completely unknown language. The world's best cryptographers, from World War I and II codebreakers to modern computational linguists, have attempted to crack it, all without success. Even the brilliant minds at the FBI and the National Security Agency have been stumped by this medieval enigma. Theories about the manuscript's content and origin are as varied and strange as its illustrations. Some believe it is an elaborate hoax, a 15th-century prank designed to fool a wealthy collector, though the internal regularities of the text and the sheer cost of the vellum make this less likely. Others propose it is a cipher hiding a known language, possibly Latin or a Proto-Romance tongue, but no decryption key has ever been found. A more radical theory suggests it is a book written in an extinct natural language from a lost culture, or perhaps even an example of glossolalia, or quote. 10. Recent studies using artificial intelligence have suggested the text may follow patterns similar to those of real languages, adding weight to the theory that it is not a hoax, but a genuine and profoundly solitary piece of lost human knowledge. Shifting from a mystery of script to a puzzle of potential power, we travel to the region of Qujut Rabu, near modern-day Baghdad, Iraq, where in the 1930s, archaeologists uncovering a Parthian settlement made a curious discovery. They unearthed a collection of small terracotta jars, each about 5 inches tall, containing a copper cylinder that was itself encasing an iron rod. The iron rod was suspended in the center of the cylinder, likely held in place by an asphalt plug at the top of the jar, which would have sealed the entire assembly. On the surface, these artifacts appeared to be simple storage vessels, but a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig, who later examined the objects, proposed a far more electrifying theory. Koenig hypothesized that these were not jars at all, but ancient galvanic cells, or what we would today call batteries. He speculated that if the jars were filled with an acidic or alkaline electrolyte, such as lemon juice or grape vinegar, a chemical reaction would occur between the iron and copper, producing a small but measurable electric current. His theory suggested that the Parthians, who lived in the region from around 250 BCE to 220 CE, had discovered the principles of electricity and were using these batteries for a practical purpose: electroplating. It is thought they might have used the weak current to deposit a thin layer of gold onto silver objects, creating what looked like solid gold artifacts, a sophisticated technique that was not known to exist until much later. While the theory of ancient batteries is tantalizing, many in the scientific community remain deeply skeptical, pointing to a lack of supporting evidence. No wires, no conductors, and no objects that were demonstrably electroplated have ever been found in connection with these artifacts, which seems like a major omission if they were part of a wider technological system. Furthermore, the voltage these "11" would generate is extremely low, likely less than 1 volt, raising questions about whether it would be sufficient for effective electroplating. An alternative, more prosaic explanation is that the jars were simply used to store scrolls, with the iron rod acting as a central spindle around which the papyrus or parchment was rolled. The acidic residue, then, would not be an electrolyte, but the remnant of the decaying organic material, leaving the true purpose of these strange jars lost to time. But some bizarre discoveries are not small objects that fit in a laboratory. They are vast designs carved into the very skin of the earth, visible only from the heavens. For our final enigma, we travel to the arid, high desert plateau of southern Peru, a region known as Nazca, a place named for the ancient civilization that flourished there between 100 BCE and 700 CE. Here, etched into the stark reddish-brown landscape, are hundreds of massive geoglyphs, created by removing the sun-darkened stones to reveal the lighter, whitish earth beneath. These lines, which have been preserved for centuries by the region's dry, windless climate, form a stunning and utterly mysterious gallery of immense scale and ambition. The Nazca lines, as they are now known, comprise a staggering variety of designs, ranging from simple geometric shapes, like straight lines, trapezoids, and spirals, to over 70 biomorphic figures. These giant pictograms include a 180-foot-long spider, a hummingbird with a wingspan of over 300 feet, a monkey with a spiraling tail, a lizard, and a humanoid figure often called, quote, 12. The precision of these lines is astonishing, with some running perfectly straight for miles across the rugged terrain, and others following the natural contours of the landscape with mathematical accuracy. The sheer scale of the undertaking, requiring the coordinated effort of many people over generations, speaks to the importance these designs held for the Nazca people, yet their true meaning remains one of archaeology's greatest debates. For decades, the leading theory, championed by the German mathematician and archaeologist Maria Rieke, was that the lines formed a vast astronomical calendar used to mark the solstices, equinoxes, and the heliacal risings of stars and planets. However, subsequent research has shown that only a small fraction of the lines actually correlate with significant celestial events, casting doubt on this as a universal explanation. Other theories suggest the lines were sacred pathways used in ritual processions, a way to connect communities with their deities and the sacred landscape. A more recent hypothesis proposes that the lines are related to water, a precious and scarce resource in the Nazca Desert, and that they were part of a system for mapping and appealing to the water gods. Ultimately, The enduring mystery of the Nazca Lines is not just why they were made, but how a pre-literate culture could achieve such geometric perfection on a monumental scale without the ability to view their work from above. There is no evidence that the Nazca people had the capability of flight, yet the figures are so large that their full form is impossible to comprehend from ground level. This has led to more fringe theories, involving everything from alien intervention to lost technologies. But the most plausible explanation lies in their ingenuity. They likely used simple surveying techniques, grids, and stakes to transfer a smaller, master design onto the vast desert canvas, a testament to human planning and dedication. The Nazca Lines remain a powerful symbol of a vanished worldview, a message written in the earth that we can still see but can no longer read. The enduring enigma of the Nazca Lines serves as a powerful reminder that our planet holds secrets from the past that defy easy explanation. These are not just artifacts or ruins, but events, phenomena that occurred within the flow of human history and were recorded, yet remain fundamentally misunderstood. They challenge our assumptions about the natural world, the limits of human psychology, and the very nature of reality itself. From inexplicable plagues that swept through communities to cosmic signals from the void, history is punctuated by moments of profound strangeness. These events, documented by contemporary observers, yet stripped of a definitive cause, continue to fascinate and perplex scientists and historians to this day, standing as monuments to the vastness of our ignorance. One such event unfolded in the summer of the year 1518 in the city of Strasbourg, then a part of the Holy Roman Empire. It began, according to historical records, with a single woman known as Frau Trophia, who stepped into the street and began to dance ceaselessly. For days, she did not stop, her feet moving in a frantic, involuntary motion despite her exhaustion and the pleas of onlookers. Within a week, the bizarre affliction had spread, with more than 30 people joining her in this marathon of movement. By the end of the month, the number of dancers had swelled to several hundred, a horrifying public spectacle that authorities were powerless to contain. Contemporary chronicles describe a scene of utter chaos as men and women, gripped by this mysterious mania, danced until their feet bled and their bodies gave out. They did not appear to be enjoying themselves. Their expressions were often contorted in pain and terror, their movements jerky and uncontrolled. Physicians and local leaders, baffled by the plague, initially concluded it was a form of divine wrath or a curse from Saint Vitus, a saint associated with dancing. Their prescribed solution was almost as strange as the affliction itself. They hired more musicians to play, believing that forcing the dancers to continue without rest might eventually cure them. This strategy only exacerbated the crisis, leading to many participants dying from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer exhaustion as the dancing marathon stretched on for weeks. Modern science has proposed several theories to explain the dancing plague of 1518, though none have been definitively proven. The most widely accepted explanation among psychologists is that it was an extreme case of mass psychogenic illness, or mass hysteria, a phenomenon where psychological distress manifests as physical symptoms in a group of people. The region was suffering from severe famine, disease, and profound religious tension following series of smallpox outbreaks and syphilis epidemics, creating a population under immense stress. Another historical theory points to the ergot fungus, which can grow on rye grain and produce psychoactive chemicals similar to LSD, causing convulsions and hallucinations. However, ergot poisoning typically results in gangrene and crawling sensations, not coordinated dancing, leading many researchers to favor the psychological explanation for this uniquely strange historical event. Shifting from a mania of the mind to a cataclysm of the cosmos, we travel to the remote, sparsely populated Siberian region of Russia, near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River. On the morning of June 30, 1908, an event of unimaginable violence occurred here, an explosion that would become the largest impact event in recorded history. Witnesses hundreds of miles away reported seeing a flash of blue light in the sky, as bright as the sun, followed by a deafening sound and a powerful shockwave that knocked people off their feet and shattered windows for miles. The force of the blast was estimated to be equivalent to 15 megatons of TNT, 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yet for decades, the event remained largely a mystery to the outside world. It was not until 1927 that the first Soviet scientific expedition, led by mineralogist Leonid Kulik, finally reached the remote blast zone, braving the harsh Siberian wilderness. What Kulik and his team found was a scene of apocalyptic destruction. Over 800 square miles of remote forest had been flattened, with an estimated 80 million trees felled in a massive radial pattern. The trees at the epicenter were still standing, but they were completely stripped of their branches and bark, resembling giant telegraph poles pointing away from the blast center. Astonishingly, despite the sheer scale of the explosion, no impact crater was ever found, which only deepened the mystery. For years, Kulik and others searched for a fragment of the meteorite they presumed had caused the devastation, digging in the marshy ground but finding nothing. The absence of a crater and any meteoric fragments has fueled a century of debate and numerous outlandish theories to explain the Tunguska event. Early speculation included the explosion of a tiny black hole or antimatter particle passing through the Earth, or even a nuclear explosion caused by a damaged alien spacecraft. However, the prevailing scientific consensus today points toward a more conventional, albeit no less dramatic, explanation. The leading theory is that the object was a stony meteor or a fragment of a comet, estimated to be between 100 and 200 feet in diameter, which exploded in an airburst 5 to 10 miles above the ground. This type of atmospheric explosion would have released all its energy into the atmosphere, creating the massive shockwave and flattening the forest without leaving a crater or large fragments, a hypothesis supported by later simulations and the discovery of microscopic impact particles and resin in the soil. But not all puzzling phenomena are grand cosmic explosions. Some are intimate, human-scale mysteries that blur the line between history and folklore. We journey now to the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England, during the 12th century, a time when chroniclers recorded a truly bizarre and haunting tale. According to the accounts of two respected historians of the time, Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh, two children, a brother and a sister, suddenly appeared near the village. They were distinguished by two peculiar features. Their skin had a strange green hue, and they spoke an entirely unknown language. The children were disoriented, dressed in unfamiliar clothing made of a strange metallic material, and refused to eat any of the food offered to them. When the villagers finally presented the children with beanstalks, they eagerly devoured them for weeks before gradually being weaned onto a normal diet. As time passed, the boy, who was the younger of the two, grew sickly and died. But the girl thrived. She learned to speak English, lost her green-tinged skin, and eventually assimilated into the local community, even taking a job as a servant. When she was able to communicate clearly, she told a fantastical story about her origins, claiming she and her brother came from a land where there was no sun, only a perpetual twilight. She described their homeland as a place called St. Martin's Land, and said they had become lost after wandering into a cavern while tending their father's herd, only to emerge in the bright, unfamiliar world of Woolpit. Historians and folklorists have debated the meaning of the green children of Woolpit for centuries, offering a wide spectrum of explanations. Some believe the story is pure allegory, a folktale representing the encounter between the indigenous English population and the Flemish immigrants who had settled in the area, suggesting the green skin could refer to the Flemish's connection to the green homeland or their fair skin. A more literal interpretation suggests the children were suffering from a form of malnutrition known as hypochromic anemia, which can cause a greenish skin discoloration, and that their story of a subterranean world was a confused memory of being lost in ancient mine workings. Another psychological theory proposes it was a case of folie à deux, or shared psychosis, where the children's delusion was adopted and mythologized by the local community, leaving us with a fascinating but ultimately unprovable historical mystery. Our journey through strange events now takes us to the county of Devon in southwest England, in the cold February of 1855. Following a heavy snowfall that had blanketed the region, residents awoke to a sight that would fuel fear and speculation for generations to come. A single, unbroken trail of mysterious tracks had appeared overnight, stretching for over 100 miles across the countryside. The prints were U-shaped, about 4 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, and were arranged in a single file, as if made by a creature walking on 2 legs. The most chilling aspect of the phenomenon, however, was the sheer impossibility of the track's path. The mysterious footprints, which quickly became known as the quote 14, seemed to defy all known laws of physics and biology. They marched straight through high walls, over the tops of houses, and across roofs, appearing on the other side as if the barrier did not exist. They were found in enclosed gardens and courtyards where no animal or human could have entered, and they terminated as mysteriously as they had begun, at the edge of the River Exe. Panic gripped the local population, with armed bands of men patrolling the streets and clergymen delivering sermons about the coming of the devil. The incident was widely reported in local newspapers, with the Times of London also picking up the story, cementing the event's place in the annals of the unexplained. Countless theories were proposed at the time to explain the devil's footprints, ranging from the theological to the bizarrely zoological, suggesting everything from a rogue kangaroo to an unknown bipedal badger. Modern explanations have attempted to apply more scientific reasoning to the mystery. Some meteorologists have suggested a rare meteorological phenomenon, such as a small whirlwind or a quote 15 event, could have created a pattern of melted snow, though this does not easily account for their consistent shape. The most plausible, if uninspiring, theory is that it was a deliberate hoax, perhaps perpetrated by several individuals using stilts or a specially designed apparatus to create a sensation and frighten the superstitious local populace. Yet the sheer scale and the impossible path of the tracks make even a coordinated hoax difficult to imagine, leaving the Devon event as a tantalizing and unresolved puzzle from the Victorian era. Finally, we shift our gaze from the Earth to the cosmos for a much more modern and equally perplexing phenomenon. A signal that may have been our one and only detection of an extraterrestrial intelligence. The date was August 15, 1977, and the location was the Big Ear Radio Observatory at Ohio State University. As part of the SETI project, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the radio telescope was scanning the sky, listening for artificial radio signals from deep space. On that day, volunteer astronomer Jerry Eman was reviewing the computer printout of the telescope's recordings when he saw a sequence of characters so startling that he circled it in red pen and wrote the word "wow" in the margin. This single handwritten exclamation immortalized the event as the "wow" signal. The signal itself was remarkable. It was an extremely narrow-band radio burst, a characteristic that is almost always associated with artificial, technological sources rather than natural astronomical objects. Its intensity was off the charts, measuring as an incredibly strong signal, far above the background noise of the universe. Furthermore, the signal lasted for the full 72 seconds that the Big Ear telescope was pointed at that specific patch of sky, which is exactly how long an object fixed in space would remain in the telescope's beam. The telescope's tracking system confirmed that the signal came from a specific direction in the constellation Sagittarius, near the Chi Sagittarii star group. All the characteristics of the signal suggested it was precisely what SETI researchers had been hoping to find, a deliberate, powerful beacon from an alien civilization. The profound mystery of the WOW signal lies not in what it was, but in what it became, a ghost. In the decades that followed, astronomers have pointed hundreds of increasingly sensitive radio telescopes at the exact same spot in the sky, listening for a repeat of the signal. It has never been heard again. Theories to explain its singular appearance are plentiful. Perhaps it was a one-time powerful transmission from an alien civilization, like a cosmic lighthouse sweep, or it could have been a reflection of a terrestrial radio signal off a piece of space debris, though this does not fit the signal's profile perfectly. Some scientists have speculated it could be a previously unknown and transient astronomical phenomenon. To this day, the WOW signal remains the most compelling and tantalizing piece of evidence in the search for extraterrestrial life. A silent cosmic shout that was heard once and then vanished forever. From the silent cosmic enigma of a potential alien signal, we now turn our attention to the loud and brutal stage of human conflict. History's battlefields, soaked in blood and echoing with the cries of men, have also been the backdrop for some of the most perplexing and unbelievable events ever recorded. These are not just legends born from the fog of war. Many are documented in official military reports and attested to by credible witnesses. They suggest that in moments of extreme crisis, when the known world is tearing itself apart, the unknown sometimes chooses to manifest. Our journey now takes us into the heart of these battlefield anomalies, where history and mystery collide on the front lines. Our first stop is the town of Mons in Belgium, at the very outset of the First World War in August of 1914. The British Expeditionary Force, a small but professional army, found itself in a desperate retreat against the overwhelming might of the German advance. Outnumbered and exhausted, the British soldiers fought a series of bloody rearguard actions, facing what seemed like certain annihilation. It was in this climate of utter despair and heroism that a series of strange reports began to circulate among the troops. Soldiers, and later civilians, spoke of an incredible divine intervention that had saved them from total destruction. The story that rapidly took hold was of the Angel of Mons. Accounts varied, but the core narrative described a supernatural presence appearing on the battlefield at a critical moment. Some soldiers reported seeing a luminous angelic figure in the sky, seemingly holding back the German forces. Others described visions of ghostly horsemen with bows, led by a spectral figure of St. George, inspired by the English victory at Agincourt centuries earlier. These ethereal archers, the story went, loosed phantom arrows that fell harmlessly among the British, but sowed terror and confusion in the German ranks. The legend spread like wildfire, first through letters home from the soldiers and then through British newspapers, becoming a powerful morale booster for a nation facing a long and grim war. The story of the Angel of Mons was not merely a piece of battlefield folklore. It became a national phenomenon, a symbol of hope in a time of darkness. The Church of England embraced the tale, seeing it as proof of divine providence on the side of the Allies. However, as the war progressed, skeptics and investigators began to question the veracity of these incredible accounts. The most significant challenge to the legend came from a Welsh author named Arthur Machen, who had published a short story called The Bowman in the London Evening News on September 29, 1914. Machen's fictional tale described spectral bowmen from Agincourt saving British soldiers at Mons, and many began to wonder if his story was the origin of the entire legend. According to this theory, Machen's work of fiction, read by a public desperate for miracles, was mistaken for a factual news report and then amplified by rumor and wishful thinking. Yet, this explanation is not without its own mysteries. Many soldiers who claim to have witnessed something at Mons maintain that their visions occurred in late August, weeks before Machen's story was even published. Leading historians and psychologists have proposed alternative theories, suggesting the event was a case of mass hysteria or a collective hallucination brought on by extreme stress, fatigue, and fear. In the chaos of a retreat, the human mind, they argue, can create powerful visions to cope with the unbearable reality, leaving the true origin of the Angel of Mons forever lost between faith and fact. As one world war gave way to another, a new type of battlefield anomaly began appearing in the skies over Europe and the Pacific. These were not religious visions, but technological mysteries that baffled both Allied and Axis pilots. They were given the name Quote 20, a term possibly derived from the French phrase Quote 21 or Quote 22, or from a nonsense word from a popular comic strip. These Foo Fighters were typically described as small, glowing orbs, disks, or balls of light, often reddish or orange in color. They would appear suddenly, fly alongside aircraft, sometimes in formation, and exhibit flight capabilities that were far beyond any known technology of the era. Pilots from the American 415th Night Fighter Squadron were among the first to officially report these phenomena over the Rhine Valley in November of 1944. Their logs described seeing 8 to 10 glowing, reddish balls flying in a tight formation, pacing their aircraft for several minutes before disappearing. Similar reports came from B-17 bomber crews over Germany, who watched these silent, dancing lights follow them through flak-filled skies on their missions. Neither side could identify them, and both initially suspected them to be a secret psychological weapon or an advanced reconnaissance drone developed by the enemy. The fact that German and Japanese pilots were reporting identical encounters with the same mysterious objects quickly ruled out that theory. Modern scientific research has proposed several natural explanations for the Foo Fighters, none of which are entirely satisfactory. One theory suggests they were a form of ball lightning, a rare and poorly understood atmospheric electrical phenomenon. Another points to St. Elmo's fire, a plasma-like glow that can appear on pointed objects like aircraft wingtips in strong electrical fields. However, pilots consistently reported that the Foo Fighters were not attached to their planes and flew with apparent intelligence, changing speed and direction instantly, a capability that no natural phenomenon could explain. To this day, the Foo Fighters remain a tantalizing wartime mystery, leading some ufologists to propose the most radical explanation, that they were extraterrestrial craft, observing human warfare with detached curiosity. Our final anomaly takes us back to the mud and blood of the First World War, to the ill-fated Gallipoli campaign in Turkey. Here, we encounter not a vision or a strange light, but a chilling and complete disappearance. The unit in question was the 1st 5th Battalion of the Norfolk Regiment, a contingent of volunteer soldiers that included the Sandringham Company, made up of men from the King's estate at Sandringham House. On August 12, 1915, during the chaotic attack on Suvla Bay, this battalion of around 800 men was ordered to advance through a dry, flat valley. As they moved forward, witnesses from other units reported seeing them march into a strange, low-lying cloud or mist that seemed to rise up from the ground. What happened next is one of the most enduring mysteries of military history. The entire battalion walked into the mist and was never seen again. When the battle subsided, no bodies were found in the valley, no wounded men emerged from the area, and no survivors or prisoners of war from the Norfolk Regiment were ever reported by the Turks. An official British investigation after the war concluded that the men had been killed in action. But this raises more questions than it answers. How could 800 men be killed without a single trace being found? And why were there no Turkish records of capturing or annihilating such a large unit in that specific location? The New Zealand government, whose troops were also fighting nearby, conducted its own inquiry and could find no explanation, officially listing the event as, quote, 24, quote. In the absence of a concrete explanation, more fantastical theories have inevitably arisen. Some have suggested the men were victims of a rare and localized natural disaster, like a sudden sinkhole that swallowed them whole, a theory for which there is no geological evidence. Others venture into the realm of science fiction, proposing that the, quote, 25, quote, was some form of dimensional portal or localized time slip, a glitch in the fabric of reality that transported the battalion to another place or time. While these ideas are highly speculative, they are born from the sheer impossibility of the official facts. The Sandringham Company, along with the rest of the 1st 5th Norfolk, simply marched into history and vanished, leaving behind a void that official accounts cannot fill. From angels in the sky to ghostly lights and entire armies disappearing into thin air, the battlefields of our past are littered with events that defy simple explanation. These are stories whispered in veterans' halls and debated in historical journals, challenging our understanding of reality itself. Perhaps the extreme psychological pressure of war opens a doorway in the human mind, causing it to perceive what is not there. Or perhaps, just perhaps, the immense energy and violence unleashed in conflict attracts or creates phenomena that our science is not yet equipped to understand. As long as nations wage war, it seems the front lines will continue to be a fertile ground not only for tragedy, but for miracles, mysteries, and things that should not be. From the unexplained phenomena that haunt the battlefields, we now turn our attention to a different arena, one where the limits of human potential are not just observed, but actively and systematically shattered. Here, the miracles are not spectral or ambiguous, but are etched into record books, measured in centimeters and milliseconds. These are the stories of individuals who pushed the human body beyond what was believed to be possible, redefining our understanding of strength, speed, and endurance. In the world of sports, the impossible becomes a target, a barrier waiting to be broken by a unique combination of physiology, psychology, and sheer will. These moments are not born from chaos, but from focused, disciplined human striving. For decades, the 4-minute mile was considered the ultimate barrier in athletics, a physiological wall that many experts believed could not be breached by a human being. Doctors and scientists theorized that the cardiovascular system would collapse under such strain, or that the muscular structure of the legs would simply tear apart. It was a symbolic as much as a physical quest, representing a struggle against a perceived human limitation that seemed as absolute as the speed of sound. Then, on May 6, 1954, a 25-year-old medical student named Roger Bannister stepped onto the Iffley Road track in Oxford, England. Running in windy, damp conditions, he not only broke the barrier, but did so with a time of 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds, a moment that shocked the world. The true magic of Bannister's achievement was not just the run itself, but its immediate aftermath, which powerfully illustrated the psychological nature of this supposed physical limit. Within 46 days, his record was broken by John Landy, and soon, a growing fraternity of sub-4-minute milers emerged. Sports psychologists now point to this as the classic quote, where the proof that something is possible instantly removes the psychological block for others. The physiology of the runners had not changed, but their belief in what was achievable had been fundamentally altered. This single race on a quiet English track demonstrated that the most formidable limits are often those we construct in our own minds. It proved that human potential is not a fixed ceiling, but a movable boundary, waiting for someone to show it can be pushed. 14 years later, the world witnessed another shattering of a perceived limit, this time in the thin air of Mexico City. The 1968 Summer Olympics were held at an altitude of over 7,300 feet, a factor that was expected to aid explosive events like the long jump due to the thinner air. However, no one could have predicted the sheer scale of what was to come. In the final round of the men's long jump, American athlete Bob Beamon approached the takeoff board, launched himself into the air, and seemed to float for an impossibly long time. When he landed in the sandpit, he was so far beyond the previous world record that the optical measuring device, designed for conventional jumps, could not even calculate the distance initially. After officials brought out a traditional steel tape measure, the result was announced: 8 meters 90 centimeters, or 29 feet 2¼ inches. Beamon had shattered the existing world record by an astonishing 55 centimeters, nearly 2 feet, a margin of improvement that had never been seen before in the event's history. His own reaction was one of collapse and cataplexy, a temporary paralysis brought on by sheer emotional and physical shock. According to leading biomechanists, Beamon's jump was a perfect storm of optimal conditions. His incredible speed, the high altitude reducing air resistance, a maximum allowable tailwind, and a flawless technique all converging in a single, spectacular leap. This single jump stood as the world record for an incredible 23 years, a testament to its truly anomalous nature and a moment that transcended sport to become a benchmark for human excellence. While some feats redefine the boundaries of physics, others redefine the boundaries of human will and endurance against physical debilitation. One of the most legendary examples of this occurred on June 11, 1997, during Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz. The night before the game, Bulls superstar Michael Jordan had been struck by a severe case of food poisoning or a viral infection, leaving him weak, dehydrated, and barely able to stand. Team doctors and trainers listed him as highly doubtful to play, and if he did, they expected his contribution to be minimal at best. He spent the night in bed, losing weight and suffering from violent symptoms, appearing ashen and exhausted when he arrived at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. What transpired on the court has since been immortalized as the flu game, one of the most legendary performances in sporting history. Despite his compromised physical state, Jordan played 44 minutes, scoring 38 points, including 7 in the final decisive period and a critical 3-point basket with 25 seconds remaining. He was visibly weak throughout the game, often leaning on teammates for support during breaks and stumbling between plays. Medical experts have since analyzed the performance, noting that the level of exertion required would be nearly impossible for a person in his condition, as the body struggles to generate energy and regulate core temperature while fighting infection. Jordan's ability to not just participate, but to dominate, remains a case study in how mental fortitude and competitive drive can, for a short time, override the body's most urgent signals of distress. From a single astonishing game, we can broaden our scope to the ultimate test of multi-sport endurance, the Ironman triathlon. Its origin itself is a story of debating the limits of human potential. Born in 1978 from a discussion among Navy SEALs in Hawaii about which athletes were the fittest, swimmers, cyclists, or runners. To settle the argument, they combined 3 of the island's most grueling endurance events: the Waikiki Rough Water Swim, the Around Oahu Bike Race, and the Honolulu Marathon. The first race consisted of a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile marathon. With the simple rule to quote 29, only 15 men started that inaugural race, and 12 crossed the finish line, pushing themselves into a state of physical distress previously thought unreachable. Today, the Ironman World Championship is held annually in Kona, Hawaii, on the Big Island, a venue renowned for its punishing environmental conditions. Athletes must contend with scorching heat that often exceeds 100 degrees Fahrenheit, brutal humidity that impedes sweat evaporation and cooling, and fierce crosswinds on the bike course that can blow cyclists off the road. Sports physiologists who study athletes in Kona document a state of profound physiological breakdown, including severe dehydration, significant muscle glycogen depletion, and systemic inflammation. The phenomenon known as quote 30 quote or quote 31 quote is not just a risk, but an expected part of the race, where the body's energy systems are pushed to their absolute limit. Competitors like 6-time champion Mark Allen and 8-time women's champion Paula Newby-Fraser are studied not just as athletes, but as case studies in human resilience, demonstrating how the body can be trained to adapt and endure under conditions that would incapacitate an ordinary person. Shifting from endurance to statistical domination, certain sporting achievements are less about a single moment of peak performance and more about a sustained, almost unbelievable level of superiority. In the world of soccer, the career of Brazilian forward Pelé fits this description, but one particular season stands out as a feat of goal scoring that seems to belong to a different era. In 1959, playing for Santos FC, Pelé scored 127 goals in a single calendar year, a record for a club player that still stands today. Modern football, with its emphasis on defensive structure, complex tactics, and a congested schedule of games, makes such a tally seem like a statistical fantasy. Leading sports analysts have examined the records, noting that while some games were against weaker opposition in state championships, the sheer volume of goals at the highest level of competition was staggering. Pelé's achievement forces a re-evaluation of sporting history and the evolution of games. Was he a product of his time, playing in a league where defenses were less organized and tactics were simpler? Or was he simply a generational talent so far ahead of his peers that he could exploit any system? Current data analysts point to his exceptional efficiency, his ability to score with both feet, his prowess in the air, and his finishing skill from any distance. His record stands as a benchmark of individual offensive brilliance that modern superstars like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, despite their incredible goal-scoring feats, have never managed to surpass in a single club year. It remains a towering statistical monument, a reminder that in the right circumstances, A single athlete can achieve numbers that defy the logic of the modern game. Sometimes, the most unbelievable sporting feats are not just about breaking records, but about accomplishing something that is statistically so improbable it may never happen again. Such is the case with Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, which took place on March 2, 1962, in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Playing for the Philadelphia Warriors against the New York Knicks, Chamberlain, already the most dominant force in basketball, achieved what was thought to be an impossible statistical milestone. The game itself was not nationally televised and was played in a small, neutral-site arena, meaning very few people witnessed it live. The circumstances of the game, his teammates deliberately feeding him the ball, the Knicks' fouling strategy, and the fast pace, created a perfect storm for a scoring explosion. Chamberlain took 63 shots that night, making 36 of them, and was an astonishing 28 for 32 from the free throw line, a remarkable feat for a player known to be a poor free throw shooter. Modern basketball experts have analyzed the play-by-play and concluded that a confluence of factors, including a relatively meaningless game late in the season, made it possible. The NBA has changed significantly since then, with the introduction of the three-point line, more sophisticated team defenses, and a greater emphasis on balanced scoring over individual heroics. No player in the subsequent 60-plus years has even come within 20 points of Chamberlain's total, leading many to believe his 100-point game is not just a record, but an unbreakable statistical singularity born from a unique moment in basketball history. These incredible feats of athleticism, from breaking the 4-minute mile to scoring 100 points, consistently lead us back to a fundamental and enduring debate. Are these individuals born with a unique genetic blueprint that predestines them for greatness? Or is their mastery the result of thousands of hours of deliberate practice and unwavering dedication? Modern genetic research has identified certain gene variants, like the ACTN3:32, which are more common in elite power athletes, suggesting a genetic component to performance. However, the presence of these genes is no guarantee of success, as many people with them never become elite athletes. Conversely, the work of psychologist Anders Ericsson on deliberate practice has popularized the "33, suggesting that mastery in any complex skill requires immense, focused effort over many years. The truth likely lies in a complex interplay between nature and nurture, where a genetically gifted individual meets the perfect environment, coaching, and opportunity to realize their potential. These athletes represent the outliers of human capability, the data points on the far right of the bell curve of human performance. As science and training methods continue to advance, one wonders what new barriers the next generation will shatter, pushing the known limits of human potential ever further into the future. Just as athletes push the boundaries of physical possibility, another class of individuals applies that same ingenuity and audacity to the shadows, orchestrating crimes so daring they seem like cinematic fiction. These are not acts of impulse, but meticulously planned symphonies of theft and evasion, where human potential is measured not in speed or strength, but in cunning, nerve, and technical brilliance. The annals of criminal history are filled with such unbelievable escapades, tales that transcend mere robbery to become legends of intellectual prowess and sheer audacity. Law enforcement agencies worldwide study these crimes, not just to apprehend the perpetrators, but to understand the intricate psychology and advanced methodologies that made them possible. From breaching impregnable vaults to escaping from inescapable prisons, these stories force us to confront a fascinating question. What is the true limit of human cleverness when aimed against the constraints of society? Consider the incredible heist at the State Bank in the Soviet city of Tobolsk in 1977, a crime that exploited the natural world as an accomplice. A team of 5 men, led by an engineer named Valery Sablin, spent months studying the city's infrastructure, plotting a theft that would leverage a catastrophic event. Their target was not the bank's main entrance, but its sewer system, located precariously close to the Irtysh River, which was prone to seasonal flooding. During a powerful spring flood, as the city was distracted by the natural disaster, Sablin's team entered the sewer system, navigating the treacherous, water-filled tunnels to emerge directly into the bank's basement. They bypassed all conventional security, drilling into a vault where cash from local businesses was stored, and escaped with what was then a staggering sum of approximately 1.5 million rubles, a fortune in the Soviet economy. The entire operation was a masterclass in environmental manipulation and engineering audacity, turning a natural disaster into the perfect cover for one of the USSR's most brazen robberies. While the perpetrators were eventually apprehended due to a careless mistake, the heist itself remains a textbook example of how a deep understanding of one's environment can render the most sophisticated security measures utterly useless. A ghost story told in the halls of the Soviet banking system. Shifting from environmental exploitation to technological subversion, the Antwerp Diamond Center heist in 2003 stands as a monument to criminal patience and technical genius. Located in a high-security complex, the Diamond Center's vault was considered one of the most secure in the world, protected by layers of defense, including infrared heat detectors, a seismic sensor, a magnetic field, and a lock with over 100 million possible combinations. The mastermind, an Italian thief named Leonardo Notarbartolo, rented an office in the Diamond District 2 years prior to the heist, using it as a base for meticulous surveillance and planning. His team discovered that the vault's main alarm system had a simple vulnerability. The infrared heat sensors could be bypassed with a thin layer of hairspray to mask body heat. On the weekend of the heist, the team bypassed the magnetic field, disabled the light sensor with a simple DIY device, and then, over an entire night, painstakingly drilled through the massive steel lock, a process that required immense skill and nerve. They made off with an estimated $100 million in diamonds, gold, and jewelry, and though Notarbartolo was eventually caught, most of the diamonds were never recovered. This heist demonstrated that no system is infallible, and that with enough time and ingenuity, even the most advanced technology can be undone by a combination of low-tech tricks and sheer determination. The theme of escaping the quote 35 finds its ultimate expression in the legendary 1962 escape from Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, the maximum security prison built on an island in San Francisco Bay. Alcatraz was designed to be escape-proof, a fortress of concrete and steel surrounded by frigid, shark-infested waters with treacherous currents. Yet 3 inmates, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, orchestrated an escape that has baffled authorities for over 6 decades. Over the course of a year, they used crude tools fashioned from spoons and stolen motor parts to chip away at the corroded concrete walls of their cells, creating vents leading to an unguarded service corridor. They constructed decoy heads out of soap, toilet paper, and real human hair to fool the guards during their nightly bed checks, and even built a raft and life preservers from over 50 stolen raincoats. On the night of their escape, they slipped through the holes in their cells, climbed to the roof, and descended to the ground, launching their raft into the bay and vanishing into the darkness. While the official FBI report concluded that the men drowned, no bodies were ever found. And in recent years, a family member of the Anglins has presented compelling evidence, including a photograph, suggesting the men survived their incredible journey. The Alcatraz escape remains the ultimate open case in American criminal history, a symbol of defiance against an institution designed to crush all hope. While escapes test the limits of individual cunning, large-scale heists like the Great Train Robbery of 1963 in Britain showcase the power of a well-oiled criminal team. A gang of 15 robbers, led by Bruce Reynolds, targeted a Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London, knowing it was carrying a substantial amount of cash. Their plan was audacious in its simplicity and precision. They used a fake red signal to stop the train in a remote, rural area, then overpowered the train crew without firing a single shot. Once inside, they used their inside knowledge of the carriage layout to locate the high-value packages, HVP carriage, which contained used banknotes being transported to London for destruction. In less than 20 minutes, they unloaded 120 sacks containing a sum equivalent to over $50 million in today's money, and transferred them to their waiting truck. The getaway was swift, and the robbers escaped to a nearby farmhouse to divide the loot. The sheer scale and non-violent professionalism of the crime stunned the nation and the police, sparking one of the largest manhunts in British history. Although most of the gang was eventually captured, the Great Train Robbery entered popular culture as a masterpiece of criminal logistics, a perfectly executed crime that was as much about planning and discipline as it was about theft. The ingenuity displayed in criminal enterprises is not confined to peacetime. It has also flourished in the most desperate of circumstances, such as prisoner of war camps. The Great Escape from Stalag Luft III in Nazi Germany in 1944 is a testament to the collective resilience and engineering prowess of Allied airmen. Tasked with escaping a camp specifically designed to prevent tunneling, the prisoners embarked on an audacious plan to dig not one, but 3 massive tunnels, codenamed Tom, Dick, and Harry. This was a monumental engineering feat, accomplished with improvised tools made from tin cans, bedboards, and table knives, and required a complex system for disposing of the excavated sand, which they hid in their trousers and scattered around the camp. The prisoners also forged documents, created civilian disguises, and even built an air pump and lighting system for the tunnels. On the night of the escape, 76 men crawled through the 350-foot-long tunnel Harry before the escape was discovered. While most of the escapees were recaptured, and 50 were tragically executed on Hitler's orders, the escape itself was an incredible act of defiance and ingenuity. It demonstrated that even in the most oppressive environments, the human spirit can conspire to achieve the impossible, creating a legacy of courage and cunning that was later immortalized in film. From the grand scale of mass escapes to the silent precision of a single night, the theft from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston in 1990 is a crime of unparalleled cultural audacity. In the early hours after St. Patrick's Day, 2 men dressed as Boston police officers gained entry to the museum by tricking the 2 young on-duty security guards. They claimed to be responding to a disturbance, and once inside, they overpowered the guards, handcuffing them in the basement. For the next 81 minutes, the thieves calmly and methodically cut 13 priceless works of art from their frames, including masterpieces by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Degas, and Manet, with a total value now estimated at over $500 million. In a final, strange gesture, they took the paintings but left the frames behind on the floor. This was not a random smash and grab, it was a highly selective theft, suggesting the thieves had a specific shopping list. To this day, over 3 decades later, not a single piece of art has been recovered, and the case remains the largest unsolved property crime in history. The empty frames still hang in the museum as a haunting testament to the loss, and as a placeholder for a mystery that continues to confound the FBI and art investigators worldwide. These unbelievable crimes and escapes represent the dark mirror to humanity's greatest achievements, showcasing a similar level of dedication, innovation, and risk-taking. They force a constant arms race between perpetrators and protectors, driving advancements in security technology, forensic science, and investigative techniques. The stories are captivating not because of the stolen wealth or gained freedom, but because they are intricate puzzles of human behavior, where intellect and nerve are pitted against the systems designed to contain them. Whether it is a sewer, a vault, or an island prison, these narratives prove that no barrier is absolute when faced with a determined and brilliant mind. They are a powerful and unsettling reminder that the same potential for greatness that fuels athletes and innovators can also be channeled into the art of the perfect crime, leaving society to forever ponder the next unbelievable exploit. While some human feats are defined by secrecy and solitude, others are manifested in the open, on a scale so massive it defies comprehension, representing humanity's innate desire to congregate. These global gatherings, whether for faith, celebration, or protest, are among the most complex and spectacular events on the planet, drawing millions into a single, shared experience. They are logistical marvels, psychological phenomena, and powerful demonstrations of collective identity, temporarily reshaping cities and landscapes. From ancient sacred rites to modern musical festivals, the impulse to gather has shaped civilizations and continues to be a driving force in human society. These spectacles are not just crowds, they are temporary, vibrant ecosystems of human connection, purpose, and emotion. Perhaps no gathering on Earth is more ancient or spiritually charged than the Kumbh Mela, a Hindu pilgrimage that occurs at 4 sacred rivers in India over a 12-year cycle. The most significant of these, the Prayag Kumbh Mela, takes place at the confluence of the Ganges, Yamuna, and the mythical Saraswati rivers in Prayagraj, drawing tens of millions of devotees. In 2013, the event attracted an estimated 120 million people over a 55-day period, a gathering so immense it was visible from space, making it the largest peaceful gathering in human history. Pilgrims come to bathe in the holy waters, believing the act cleanses them of sin and helps them break the cycle of rebirth. For a few weeks, the riverbanks transform into a sprawling, meticulously organized temporary city, complete with hospitals, roads, police stations, and mass electricity grids, a breathtaking testament to faith and organization. The logistical challenge of the Kumbh Mela is a subject of study for urban planners and governments worldwide, as it involves creating a functioning metropolis from scratch in a matter of months. Authorities must manage staggering numbers, ensuring the supply of millions of liters of clean water, tons of food, and the disposal of thousands of tons of waste each day, all without major incident. A temporary pontoon bridge network spanning several kilometers is built to facilitate the movement of people across the rivers, and extensive temporary policing and medical facilities are established. According to experts in crowd management, the success of the Kumbh Mela lies in its decentralized structure, with different sects and groups managing their own camps, under a broader administrative umbrella. This event is not merely a religious ritual, but a living laboratory for understanding large-scale human organization and resilience. On the other side of the globe, another pilgrimage of immense scale and global significance unfolds annually in the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. The Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a mandatory religious duty for all able-bodied Muslims who can afford it, drawing between 2 and 3 million pilgrims from every country on earth. For 5 days, a sea of humanity, united in simple white garments, moves in unison through a series of ancient rituals, reenacting the trials of the Prophet Abraham and his family. The pilgrims circle the Kaaba, the black cube-shaped building at the center of the Grand Mosque, stand together in prayer on the plain of Arafat, and symbolically stone the devil. The Hajj is a profound display of unity and equality, where kings and laborers pray side by side, their national and economic identities dissolved by a shared, transcendent faith. The management of the Hajj presents a perennial challenge, heightened by the extreme climate and the sheer density of the crowds within confined sacred spaces. The Saudi government invests billions of dollars each year to expand infrastructure, improve crowd flow, and ensure the safety of pilgrims, deploying advanced crowd control technologies and tens of thousands of security personnel. Tragedies, such as stampedes, have marred the event in the past, leading to continuous innovations in logistics, including the use of predictive analytics and real-time monitoring via vast CCTV networks. Sociologists suggest that the Hajj's power lies in its ability to create a powerful quote 41, a concept coined by Emil Durkheim to describe the feeling of shared emotion and solidarity that binds individuals together. This annual convergence transforms Mecca into the most cosmopolitan city on earth, a microcosm of the global Muslim community, or Ummah. Beyond the realm of organized religion, humanity gathers to celebrate life, culture, and art with an equally fervent passion, creating spectacles of color, music, and joy. No event embodies this spirit more spectacularly than the Rio Carnival in Brazil, a 4-day pre-Lenten festival that draws nearly 2 million people to the streets of Rio de Janeiro each day. The heart of the carnival is the Sambadrome, a purpose-built parade stadium where the city's top samba schools compete in a dazzling display of choreography, music, and extravagant costumes. Each school's performance is a grand narrative, often telling a story from Brazilian history, mythology, or social commentary, backed by a thundering percussion section of hundreds of drummers. The preparations are a year-round affair, involving entire communities in the creation of floats and costumes, making the carnival a vital expression of Brazilian identity and cultural pride. While the Sambadrome showcases organized competition, the true spirit of the Rio Carnival is found in the hundreds of street parties, or quote 42 quote, that erupt across the city, involving millions of locals and tourists in spontaneous celebration. Anthropologists view the carnival as a form of social inversion, where the normal rules of society are temporarily suspended, allowing for a release of energy and a blurring of social boundaries. The event has a massive economic impact, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for the city through tourism and hospitality. But its greatest value is arguably its role in unifying a diverse nation through a shared cultural experience. The infectious rhythm of the samba, the vibrant costumes, and the uninhibited joy of the crowd make Rio Carnival a global benchmark for festive celebration, a phenomenon studied by cultural theorists for its ability to create a temporary state of collective euphoria. In a different cultural context, the city of Munich in Germany hosts Oktoberfest, the world's largest folk festival, combining a beer festival with a traveling fun fair, attracting over 6 million visitors from around the world annually. For 16 to 18 days, the Theresienwiese, a large open space, is transformed into a temporary city of massive beer tents, traditional food stalls, and amusement rides, each tent run by a different Munich brewery. The festival is deeply rooted in Bavarian tradition, with attendees often dressed in lederhosen and dirndls, and the atmosphere is one of hearty, communal celebration. Despite its focus on beer, Oktoberfest is a family-friendly event with a strong sense of tradition and coziness, a German word that conveys a state of warmth, friendliness, and good cheer. It is a powerful engine for Bavarian tourism and a global symbol of German hospitality and tradition. The scale of Oktoberfest is staggering, with over 7 million liters of beer consumed and hundreds of thousands of roasted chickens and sausages eaten during the festival's duration. The logistics are immense, requiring a dedicated team to oversee security, medical services, and cleanup, with the grounds returning to their normal state within weeks of the festival's conclusion. Historically, the event originated in 1810 to celebrate the marriage of Crown Prince Ludwig, and it has since evolved into a global phenomenon, with smaller Oktoberfest celebrations held in cities across the world. It represents a different kind of pilgrimage, one centered on cultural heritage, culinary delights, and a shared experience of communal joy. Such gatherings demonstrate that the need to celebrate collectively is as powerful a human driver as the need to worship. Not all mass gatherings are rooted in tradition or celebration. Some emerge spontaneously as powerful expressions of social and political change. In August of 1969, the Woodstock Music and Art Fair took place on a dairy farm in Bethel, New York, unexpectedly becoming the defining moment for a generation. Originally planned for 50,000 attendees, the event swelled to an estimated 400,000 as a massive traffic jam and a spirit of countercultural rebellion turned it into a free concert. For 3 days, a diverse crowd of young people endured rain, mud, and food shortages, united by a message of peace, love, and anti-war sentiment, captured in iconic performances by artists like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Woodstock became a cultural touchstone, symbolizing the peak of the hippie movement and the power of music to unite a disaffected youth in a shared vision for a better world. The legacy of Woodstock lies not just in its music, but in its demonstration of a new form of societal expression, where youth culture could coalesce into a significant political and social force. Sociologists note that the festival's chaotic yet peaceful nature challenged established norms about authority, community, and public assembly. It showed that even without formal organization, a large group of people, bound by a common ethos, could create a temporary functioning society based on principles of cooperation and mutual support. Decades later, the spirit of Woodstock lives on in modern music festivals like Glastonbury in the UK or Coachella in the US. though these are often more commercialized. Nevertheless, the original event remains a powerful case study in the potential for mass gatherings to become catalysts for cultural and political transformation. In the modern era, mass gatherings have also become a primary tool for political protest and demands for change, as seen in events like the 2003 global protest against the Iraq War, which saw coordinated demonstrations in over 600 cities. On February 15th of that year, an estimated 10 to 15 million people marched in what is considered the largest anti-war protest in human history. A powerful display of global public opinion coordinated through the then-nascent internet. More recently, movements like Fridays for Future, led by activists like Greta Thunberg, have mobilized millions of students and citizens worldwide in strikes demanding action on climate change. These globally synchronized protests represent a new form of gathering, enabled by digital communication that transcends national borders and unites disparate groups around a common cause. They are a testament to the enduring power of public assembly to hold power to account and shape the global agenda. The psychological impact of being part of such a multitude is profound, a phenomenon that scientists are only beginning to fully understand. Research into crowd psychology suggests that being in a large group can lead to a loss of self-awareness and a heightened sense of emotional connection with others, a process known as quote 44. This can lead to either negative outcomes, like a loss of personal responsibility, or positive ones, such as increased pro-social behavior and a feeling of collective empowerment. Neuroscientists have found that attending a large concert or sporting event can trigger the release of endorphins, creating a sense of well-being and social bonding. These events tap into a deep-seated part of our evolutionary past, where survival often depended on being part of a large, cohesive group, a legacy that still resonates in our modern desire to be part of the crowd. Ultimately, these global spectacles, whether sacred or secular, ancient or modern, reveal a fundamental truth about the human condition. We are fundamentally social creatures who seek meaning and identity in collective experiences. They are the physical manifestations of our shared stories, beliefs, and passions. Moments when the abstract concept of quote 45 quote becomes a tangible, breathing reality. The logistics required to host them are a marvel of modern engineering, while the emotions they generate are a testament to the enduring power of shared human experience. From the sacred banks of the Ganges to the festive streets of Rio, these gatherings are a powerful reminder of our interconnectedness and our capacity for unity on a breathtaking scale. As humanity continues to evolve and its challenges become more global, the drive to come together, to celebrate, to mourn, to protest, and to simply be with one another will undoubtedly remain one of our most defining and spectacular traits, a prelude perhaps to our next great gathering, not on this world, but beyond it. A prelude perhaps to our next great gathering, not on this world, but beyond it. This final epic chapter of human endeavor takes us beyond the confines of our atmosphere, into the silent, vast expanse of space, where our species has achieved its most audacious and unifying moments. The story of space exploration is, at its core, a story of overcoming limitations, a narrative written with rocket fire and guided by celestial mechanics, a testament to an insatiable curiosity that propels us towards the stars. It began not with a unified global effort, but with a fierce ideological competition between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. A race for technological and ideological supremacy that paradoxically united the world in shared awe. The cosmic arena became the ultimate stage for displaying human prowess, with each breakthrough broadcast globally, creating moments of collective tension and triumph that transcended national borders and political divides. The dawn of this new era was announced on October 4, 1957, by a series of simple, repeating radio beeps originating from an object no larger than a beach ball. This was Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite, launched by the Soviet Union from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the Kazakh SSR, an event that sent shockwaves across the globe and effectively ignited the space race. For many in the West, Sputnik's orbit was a source of profound anxiety, a technological surprise that suggested Soviet missile capabilities far exceeded those of the United States. For others, it was a moment of pure, unadulterated wonder, the first time humanity had placed an object of its own making into a perpetual path around its home planet. This polished metal sphere, with its 4 long antennae, became a symbol of a new age, a tangible sign that humanity was no longer confined to the surface of its world. Following the success of Sputnik, the Soviet program continued to push boundaries, sending the first living creature into orbit on November 3, 1957. Laika, a stray dog from the streets of Moscow, became the first animal to orbit the Earth aboard Sputnik 2, a mission that captured the world's imagination while also sparking ethical debates that continue to this day. The mission was always intended to be one-way, as the technology for a safe re-entry had not yet been developed, making Laika a poignant sacrifice in the name of scientific progress. Her journey proved that a living being could survive the launch and the rigors of microgravity, providing crucial data for the future of human spaceflight. Laika became a global celebrity, a furry pioneer whose sacrifice paved the way for the humans who would follow her into the cosmos. The ultimate prize in this early competition was to put a human into space, a milestone achieved by the Soviet Union on April 12, 1961. Cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, a 27-year-old pilot, was launched aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft from the same Baikonur Cosmodrome, completing a single orbit of the Earth in a mission that lasted 108 minutes. His famous utterance, "Poyekhali, let's go," became the rallying cry for a new generation of explorers, as his successful flight and safe return made him an instant international hero. The United States, still reeling from the Soviet lead, felt the pressure acutely, spurring President John F. Kennedy to address a joint session of Congress just a few weeks later with a bold and audacious challenge. In that speech on May 25, 1961, President Kennedy declared that the United States would commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. This was a monumental undertaking, a task of almost unimaginable complexity that would require an unprecedented mobilization of resources, scientific talent, and industrial might. The Apollo program was born, a massive national enterprise that would eventually employ over 400,000 people and consume a significant portion of the federal budget. It was a clear signal that the space race would now be focused on the moon, a distant celestial body that had captivated humanity for millennia. The race was on, and the finish line was set 250,000 miles away. The path to the moon was paved with both triumphs and tragedy, most notably the Apollo 1 fire in 1967, which killed astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee during a launch rehearsal test. This disaster grounded the Apollo program for nearly 2 years, while NASA overhauled the spacecraft's design and safety protocols, a stark reminder of the immense risks involved in space exploration. The program rebounded with Apollo 8, which in December of 1968 became the first crewed mission to orbit the moon, offering humanity its first live broadcast of the lunar surface and the iconic, quote, 49 photograph. This image of a fragile, vibrant Earth rising over the barren lunar horizon profoundly shifted the public's perception of our planet, fostering a new sense of global unity and environmental awareness. Apollo 8's success was a critical psychological and technological victory, proving that the hardware and the crew were ready for the final attempt at a lunar landing. That historic attempt came with the Apollo 11 mission, which launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida on July 16, 1969, carrying astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. For 4 days, the world watched and waited as the Command Module Columbia and the Lunar Module Eagle journeyed through the void, their systems monitored by an army of engineers back on Earth. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin separated the Eagle from Collins in Columbia and began their descent to the moon's surface, a maneuver fraught with danger as they navigated to a pre-selected landing site in the Sea of Tranquility. With fuel running critically low, Armstrong took manual control, piloting the lander over a field of boulders to a safe touchdown, a feat of incredible flying under immense pressure. His words, transmitted back to a spellbound planet, were simple, profound, and unforgettable. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." A few hours later, Neil Armstrong descended the ladder from the Eagle, becoming the first human being to ever step foot on another world. As he planted his boot on the lunar dust, he uttered the immortal line, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," a phrase that perfectly encapsulated the momentousness of the achievement. An estimated 650 million people, the largest television audience for a live broadcast at the time, watched this ghostly black and white footage, a truly global gathering united by a single transcendent event. Buzz Aldrin soon followed, describing the lunar surface as a magnificent desolation, as the two astronauts planted the American flag, collected rock samples, and set up scientific experiments. Meanwhile, Michael Collins orbited alone in the command module, a solitary figure cut off from all humanity. His role in the mission just as crucial yet often overlooked, the furthest any person had ever been from their fellow human beings. The successful return of the Apollo 11 crew on July 24, 1969, marked the zenith of the space race and fulfilled Kennedy's promise, but it was far from the end of humanity's robotic exploration of the solar system. In fact, as the final Apollo missions were exploring the lunar surface, NASA was already planning an even more ambitious journey to the outer planets. This was the Grand Tour, an opportunity presented by a rare planetary alignment that occurs only once every 175 years, allowing a spacecraft to use gravity assists to visit multiple planets. The result was the Voyager program, consisting of two identical probes, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, launched in the summer of 1977 from Cape Canaveral, Florida. These robotic emissaries were designed to conduct close-up studies of Jupiter and Saturn, Saturn's rings, and the larger moons of the two planets. Voyager 1, after its encounter with Saturn and its moon Titan, was sent on a trajectory out of the plane of the ecliptic, making it the most distant human-made object from Earth. Voyager 2, however, continued on its grand tour, becoming the only spacecraft to have visited Uranus and Neptune, sending back breathtaking, never-before-seen images of these distant ice giant worlds and their bizarre moons. The discoveries were staggering, from the active volcanoes on Jupiter's moon Io to the intricate structure of Saturn's rings and the supersonic winds on Neptune. Both probes are still operational today, over 45 years after their launch, continuing to send back data from interstellar space, having crossed the boundary where the sun's influence gives way to the interstellar medium. Perhaps most poignantly, each carries a golden record, a copper phonograph record containing sounds and images selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth. A message in a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean, hoping one day to be found. The era of reusable spacecraft began in 1981 with the launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia, marking a radical new approach to space travel. The shuttle, a winged airplane-like orbiter, was designed to be launched like a rocket, orbit the Earth like a spacecraft, and land like a glider, capable of being reused up to 100 times. It was envisioned as a space truck, making access to low Earth orbit routine, affordable, and frequent, deploying satellites, conducting scientific experiments, and, most importantly, building a permanent space station. The fleet of 5 shuttles, Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour, would go on to fly 135 missions over 30 years. The program achieved incredible successes, including the deployment of the Hubble Space Telescope and the construction of the International Space Station. But it also suffered 2 catastrophic tragedies. On January 28, 1986, the world watched in horror as the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart just 73 seconds after liftoff, killing all 7 crew members, including schoolteacher Krista McAuliffe, who was chosen to be the first civilian in space. The disaster, caused by the failure of an O-ring seal in a solid rocket booster, grounded the shuttle program for nearly 3 years and led to a complete overhaul of NASA's safety culture. Then, on February 1, 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, again claiming the lives of all 7 astronauts aboard, this time due to damage to the thermal protection system incurred during launch. These 2 tragic events served as grim reminders of the inherent dangers and unforgiving nature of space travel, tempering the routine nature the shuttle was meant to bring, and reinforcing the courage required of those who venture beyond our world. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the shuttle era is the International Space Station, or ISS, a massive structure in low Earth orbit that represents one of humanity's greatest collaborative achievements. The ISS is a joint project between 5 space agencies: NASA, United States; Roscosmos, Russia; ESA, European Space Agency; JAXA, Japan; and CSA, Canada, a testament to post-Cold War cooperation. Its construction began in 1998 with the launch of the Russian Zarya control module, and it has been continuously inhabited by humans since November 2000, making it the longest continuous human presence in low Earth orbit. This orbiting laboratory is roughly the size of a 6-bedroom house and travels at a speed of 17,500 miles per hour, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. The ISS serves as a microgravity and space environment research laboratory, where scientific research is conducted in astrobiology, astronomy, meteorology, physics, and other fields. While humans have maintained a continuous presence in Earth's orbit, our robotic emissaries have been busy exploring the rest of the solar system, with Mars being a particular focus of attention. For decades, NASA has sent a succession of increasingly sophisticated rovers to the Red Planet, each one a geological detective, searching for clues about the planet's past and its potential to have hosted life. The rover Sojourner in 1997 was the first, a small proof-of-concept mission, followed by the twin rovers Spirit and Opportunity in 2004, which were designed for 90-day missions but ended up operating for years. Opportunity in particular was an astounding success, exploring for nearly 15 years and traveling over 28 miles across the Martian surface. These rovers, along with the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and other orbiters, confirmed that Mars was once a warm, wet world with rivers, lakes, and perhaps even a vast ocean in its northern hemisphere. The search for signs of past habitability intensified with the arrival of the car-sized rover Curiosity in 2012, which landed using an audacious "54" maneuver. Curiosity's mission was to determine if Mars ever had the right environmental conditions to support microbial life, and it spectacularly succeeded by finding evidence of an ancient lakebed that contained all the chemical ingredients necessary for life. The rover even detected complex organic molecules, the building blocks of life, within 3-billion-year-old mudstone, a tantalizing discovery that brought the search for life to the forefront. The most recent rover, Perseverance, which landed in 2021, is taking the next step, not just searching for signs of ancient life, but actively collecting rock samples that will be returned to Earth by a future mission. Perseverance also carried with it Ingenuity, a small robotic helicopter that in April of 2021 performed the first powered, controlled flight on another planet, a Wright brothers moment on Mars. The question, "Are we alone?" remains unanswered, but each mission brings us closer to a definitive answer. The 21st century has also witnessed a dramatic shift in the landscape of space exploration, with the rise of private companies, a phenomenon often called New Space. Spearheaded by visionary entrepreneurs like Elon Musk with SpaceX, Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, and Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic, these companies are challenging the traditional government-led model of space travel. SpaceX in particular has been revolutionary, developing the first reusable orbital-class rockets, the Falcon 9, which has dramatically lowered the cost of launching payloads into space. They now regularly fly cargo and, more recently, crew missions to the International Space Station for NASA, ending America's reliance on Russian Soyuz rockets following the retirement of the space shuttle. This new era is characterized by innovation, competition, and ambitious goals. From establishing a global satellite internet constellation with Starlink to developing the massive Starship rocket designed to transport 100 people to Mars and back. This commercialization has also opened the door to a new, albeit exclusive, form of human spaceflight: space tourism. Companies like Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin have developed suborbital spaceplanes that can take paying customers on brief trips to the edge of space, allowing them to experience a few minutes of weightlessness and witness the curvature of the Earth against the blackness of space. While the cost remains prohibitive for all but the ultra-wealthy, these flights mark the beginning of what could become a more accessible space travel industry in the future. The ultimate goal for some, however, is not just a fleeting trip, but a more permanent human presence beyond Earth. This is the driving force behind NASA's Artemis program, an international effort to return humans to the Moon, this time not just for a few flags and footprints, but to establish a sustainable, long-term presence. The plan includes building the Lunar Gateway, a small space station in orbit around the Moon that will serve as a staging point for landings and a stepping stone for future missions to Mars. Looking even further ahead, humanity's gaze is turning towards the discovery of worlds orbiting other stars, known as exoplanets. For centuries, the existence of planets beyond our solar system was a matter of speculation. But in the last few decades, astronomers have confirmed the existence of over 5,000 such worlds, with thousands more candidates awaiting verification. Missions like NASA's Kepler Space Telescope and its successor, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, TESS, have been instrumental in this revolution, finding planets in a bewildering variety of sizes and compositions, from hot Jupiters that orbit their stars in mere days to super-Earths that are larger than our own planet. Most tantalizing are the planets found within the habitable zone of their stars, the region where conditions might be just right for liquid water to exist on their surfaces. The study of exoplanet atmospheres using telescopes like the James Webb Space Telescope is now beginning, searching for chemical biosignatures like oxygen or methane that could indicate the presence of life. This ongoing search raises a profound question, encapsulated in the Fermi paradox. If the universe is vast and ancient, and the building blocks of life are common, where is everybody? This paradox, the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life and the lack of contact with such civilizations, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in science. Some theories suggest that intelligent life is exceedingly rare, or that civilizations inevitably destroy themselves before they can achieve interstellar travel. Others propose that we are simply not looking in the right way, or that advanced civilizations may be deliberately hiding from us, a hypothesis known as the zoo hypothesis. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, continues to scan the heavens for an artificial signal, a cosmic needle in a haystack, so far without success. Yet we persist, driven by the same innate curiosity that led our ancestors to cross oceans and continents. The pioneering moments in space, from Sputnik's beep to the Perseverance rover's search for ancient life, are not just about technology and discovery. They are a reflection of who we are. We are a species of explorers, driven by a deep-seated need to know what lies over the next horizon, even when that horizon is the limitless, star-dusted expanse of the cosmos itself.